You have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV. Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hey everyone, Ken Reed here, your TV guidance counselor and on hiatus stand-up comedian. It'll come back, guys. It'll come back involuntarily on hiatus, but still doing this show each and every week. Haven't missed a week since I started the show on Valentine's Day 2014. Yes, I'm patting myself on the back right now as I speak. We are barreling towards episode 500, and the COVID quarantine didn't slow things down. And speaking of things not slowing down, this week's episode is a fast-paced, furious episode of two kindred spirits here. We are this week, poor Pam. My guest is Pam Ribon, who's a writer, has written a bunch of movies, has a great podcast about Sassy Magazine, which you know I love. And if you love this show, her show is sort of like Sassy. It's like this show, but for Sassy. If she needs a guest, I'm around. I'm just saying. But we share a lot in common, and that poor woman for having you'll see. But this was a ton of fun. I cannot thank her enough. She is really, really funny. I would say if you're unfamiliar with her work, get familiar with it, but you're definitely familiar with it because she's written so many things that you've seen. You may just not know that you've seen them, that she wrote them. You can go to her website, Pamie.com, and follow all her writing and all that stuff there. She's just great. And you'll want to do that because this is a really fun episode. If you have guests you'd like me to try to get on the show, you can email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com. Of course, iCanRead.com being my own hiatus stand-up comedy site. Also on social media at Kenneth W. Reed, R-E-I-D, and at TV Guidance on all the social media. You can hit me up there, send me a DM, do whatever you want. If you like the show, you want to rate and review it. I haven't said that in a while, but it does help if you are on the Apple or Google or wherever you get the show. If you want to rate and review it, it is helpful. Also have a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor. You can donate whatever amount of money you want, as much or as little as you like. It is a huge help to covering my costs for getting the show out, so I at least don't lose money, but that's okay too. And also, we have a TeePublic store with Ken Reed and TV Guidance Counselor merchandise on there. You can get backpacks, you can get hoodies, t-shirts, phone cases, all kinds of stuff, wall art, all that kind of stuff, which you're going to want to buy all that because this week's episode is just so damn good. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Pam Ribon.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Pam Ribon, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me here.
Good. This is terrible. I was like, you should have a show called Pam Ribon Panel, like a Blue Ribon panel. I don't know what you would do, but it would somehow be handing out awards or some sort of thing.
Oh, because I have a name that sounds like something you win?
Yes, which you probably never heard before. No one's probably ever brought that up.
Say, that's true. No one has ever said that.
Really?
I'm telling you that's true. Yes.
Wow. Did you grow up in Pennsylvania?
I was born there. I grew up sort of all over the place.
Okay, because I'm like, the people of that, wherever you grew up, have a lot to answer for, because really, you should have done that.
My parents almost named me Blue, and then I probably would have heard it a lot.
Really?
Then my name would have been Blue Ribon, and that's not okay.
Which, here's the weird thing about a blue ribbon. And before we get into the podcast proper here in the TV guide, now a blue ribbon is considered a good thing, but it sounds like a sad ribbon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there aren't as many songs about blue ribbons.
Like you would award someone the blue ribbon because you're like, oh, your performance made me sad.
Yeah, you made me feel sad for you.
Which could be good. I mean, if it's like a drama competition.
Yeah, I guess you want to win the blue ribbon. I think to me, all I really think about is Hellmans / Best Foods, depending on which side of the Rockies. They have a blue ribbon. I really thought it had to do with mayonnaise.
When you were moving around a lot growing up, did you cross the Rockies and then have things be the same thing, be called a different name in this new town, like Briars and Dryers? And were you like, have I gone through some bizarre universe?
Yes, grocery chains did that a lot. So you'd be like, wait a minute. So Kroger's is Ralph's and Ralph's is Kroger's.
Yes. I did that here when I went to DC. I was like, hold on a second. So Giant Food is Stop and Shop and they have the same logo and different names. What is going on here?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it in a TV show where like one of those people has two families? And they're like, wait, that's my husband. And they're like, no, that's mine. His name is John. It's like that with supermarkets.
Well, my dad's name was John. So, I mean, this might have happened. But also, you make it seem like my life was just constantly Jack Tripper getting into problems with mayonnaise. Like, I was bringing best foods to the Regal Beagle tonight, but Hellmans showed up.
I like to think that, like, I know that this way predates A Different World, but I feel like best foods would be for racists who just hated A Different World. They're like, Hellmans? Like that college on that show? No. It should be Best Foods. Because Best Foods is such a name that a dumb person would name something.
It's pretty generic and boring. Hellmans has heft and gravitas.
A little mystery. You're like, who is Hellman?
Yeah.
Do you invent this mayonnaise? What is this? Is that a place? Is it a person? Yeah.
Is this how every one of your podcasts has started? Because I feel like I've done it again. Like you're like, we try every week, every time to not talk about Hellmans versus Best Foods, but we'll keep trying.
I have a confession to make. This is a mayonnaise podcast that when I ask people if you'll come on and talk about mayonnaise, they never do. So I have to sort of make up this story about TV guides. It's a long con.
I understand. Yeah. West of the Rockies, this show has a different name though.
That's true. The Briars Dryers always mess me up because that one's so close.
Yeah.
That you're like, no, clearly you're remembering this wrong.
It's a Berenstain Bears. Yeah, it's a Berenstain Bears of ice cream. For sure.
Here's one that annoyed me is Dr. Pepper and Mr. Pibb are now the same thing, but they weren't the same thing.
No, they used to taste very different.
Very different. And then Pepsi bought him, and then they're like, people don't know. Just call him Mr. Pibb. It doesn't matter. And they stripped him of his doctorate. And it's very weird. And I always wondered if that was like west of the Rockies. People were like, think you're better than me, Mr. Doctor? And or Mr. Doctor is a good name.
Yeah. It's it's Dr. Mr. Doctor. If my name was Mr. Doctor, I would get a doctorate so that I could be Dr. Mr. Doctor.
Dr. Mr. Doctor?
And then I'd marry and I'd be Dr. Mrs. Doctor and Mrs. Doctor, Mr. Doctor. That's what I would definitely go for.
Really good. Yeah. And see, I would go the other route where I would never join the military except in this instance, just so I could be like Captain Dr. Mr. Doctor. I will say this is an unusually tangential opening for the show, and I'm totally here for it. No, it is fantastic. And listeners of the show know one of my favorite things is store brand Dr. Pepper.
Oh.
Reason being,
what do they call it where you are in your? You mean like Safeway?
Yeah, like any generic Dr. Pepper brand, because it's the one time grocery stores have to be creative because they can't be like cola, orange. Like they have to come up with a name, and so they're just insane. Like Dr. Thunder is one.
Well, that's a warning, but yes.
Dr. Zap, that's one of my favorite ones. Dr. Awesome, that's a pretty good one.
That is good.
Yeah, so I always like to see the different fake Dr. Peppers. But speaking of real doctors, on the cover of I am so professional.
It was really good. It was flawless.
Valerie Bertinelli. Not a doctor.
Dr. Mrs.
Mrs. Valerie Van Halen Bertinelli is on the cover here, and this is an issue from March 5th to the 11th, 1983. This happens to be a Rhode Island edition. And this very specific issue was requested by you without knowing you were requesting this specific issue. Correct.
And in fact, upon reading this issue, I was like, oh, turns out, because it's 83, which is earlier than I have this memory of this episode or this thing that I watched that brought me to this TV guide. However, which means I watched some rerun in a post this actor's career took off way.
Before they were stars kind of thing.
Yeah, before he was a star. But this is definitely some prime. Pam holds the TV guide and carries it around, and everything is circled. And people are always asking, where's the TV guide? And it's because I have it, because I need it.
My parents would just realize they were never going to be able to read it, and they would just ask me what was on. Like it was this oracle. I was like the trash heap on Fraggle Rock.
That's nice. One of my earliest memories is of a TV guide. When I was very, very little, I pretended that I was dating John Travolta.
As we all do.
I mean, thank you. And I think, though, I was really dating Danny Zuko, but it doesn't really matter. But at night, I would pretend, I would reenact scenes, when I was supposed to be in bed or supposed to be asleep. And I guess one night my mom found me doing it, or she found me like asleep in a holding someone kissing them position or something. But somehow she ended up finding this out about me. And I had to have only been 3 or 4 at the time, 4 maybe. I was very young. And then I was, I explained to her that this is my boyfriend and I understand he's not real, but it's real to me. And it would be really great if she just doesn't tell anyone about it ever. And the next day, my dad threw the TV guide at me because John Travolta and the Sweat Hogs were on the cover.
Right.
And he said, Pam, you might want to read the news. I hear your boyfriend's dating Hotsy Totsy on the side.
Oh, cruel.
And I looked at my mom and I was mortified. And this is when I learned one of my first lessons. Parents tell each other things.
Yeah. Don't trust them with your secrets.
No, particularly not the ones that have to do with your heart.
Because there's no way she didn't ring up Travolta immediately.
Well,
and tell him. Yeah. Do you have siblings or your only child?
I have a younger sister.
Okay. So you were probably deciding everything that you watched on the TV then.
Our house was a multi-television house because that's how my parents grew up too. Everybody in their own room watching something, often all of us watching the exact same thing, just separately. That's how you did it, so that people weren't talking while you're watching television.
Very serious. And
it was
really,
serious.
Really prepped you for life's work at that point.
Well, I can say that as much as they at some point were like, how is this going to help you? I'm sitting here right now saying it really was. I have a doc. I am Dr. Mrs. Mrs. Ribon Pan.
Ribon Pan. Yeah, because I wonder, there's everyone I know who has a younger sibling, and this happens to be women more than men for whatever reason, but there's always a TV crush, and they never share the same one, but they always lead to arguments of what we're going to watch, crush-based television watching, because inevitably those shows will be in conflict.
What's interesting is my younger sister was just always more into the younger fare than I was because she was younger. And so she would want to watch Today's Special and kid shows. She's 3.5 years younger than I am. But by the time I was 8, I was ready for, I was watching St. Elsewhere.
Yeah, so that's no hocus pocus alamagocus.
No, I couldn't take it. I all of that stuff, Pinwheel. But, I was just waiting around for You Can't Do That on Television. So there was that. I had my crushes that she didn't really care about at all. But she also just wanted to watch Talking Mice and, sweet.
That weird,
sweet child fare.
That weird puppet security guard with the weird brush mustache. That always really bothered me because it kind of looked like worms. That's how my brain worked.
I think Punky Brewster was the only thing that was completely agreed upon because she loved Brandon and I loved the rest of Punky Brewster. So that was the one time. And I mean, ever. That was it, that we both watched TV together.
Punky Brewster traumatized so many people.
You mean the refrigerator or the whole thing?
Well, the refrigerator. Then there's, of course, the Perils of Punky 2-parter. There's the Night Stalker episode. There's the one with the savant and Alan says the meanest thing ever said on television.
Oh my goodness. I have not gone back in. And here's why. 1, isn't it better? Not 2.
Yes. Yes.
2, I thought it would be. And so I have a child and she is now 8, which is when I remember, again, just really being into St. Elsewhere and LA Law. But I sat her down for Punky Brewster and we're 10 minutes in and she turns to me and says, "This is too scary. What's going to happen? Why did someone leave her at a store? What's going to happen to Brandon?" She couldn't get through the first 10 minutes. And I really was like, when we were kids, we were like, God, Punky's got the best life.
Oh man, being an orphan abandoned in a shopping mall and living with a confirmed bachelor senior citizen in a
such a
dumpy
grumpy
apartment
man.
building. It's gonna be great.
Hide in the closet, Punky. Yeah, that was like, if only I could have that life. But yeah, so it's different now, I guess, and that's a good thing. I haven't seen past the first 10 minutes.
You haven't missed much, and if you really want to terrify your daughter, this is a segment on the show I do every week. If you really want to terrify her, but the apartment building from Punky Brewster is in Koreatown.
Is it?
Yes,
I'm writing it down.
It's right. It's right on the edges of MacArthur Park, into Koreatown, and it's so weird because none of the other architecture looks like this apartment building, and it's a really distinct apartment building because in the opening, and as soon as you know, you're like, oh yeah, of course that's the Punky Brewster apartment building. That's
awesome.
Yeah,
that gets Chicago to be on my 3-place tour because I live not too far from Rydell High. And
nice.
So that's a nice thing to drive people past.
But that's not just Rydell High,
right?
That's high school.
But that back thing before they've renovated over the past decade or whatever, but before that, it just looked like at any point a womp bomb, a loop bop, a womp bam, boom, it's going to start happening in front of you. Yeah.
And that's in so many shows that high school. The funniest thing to me when I first went out to LA was how you think we watch all these things and you never think stuff set in LA because I guess it's not supposed to be. I mean, I don't know where Greece was supposed to be, but it's not Los Angeles. It's like,
well, there's a beach. I don't know. There is a beach right there at the top.
Like America. It's just like it's sort of generic. But that high school to me always looks like, and even like the Fast Times High School, which is vaguely California, or you're like, oh, it's just like Midwest America. But you realize how good the photography was in that they managed to cut out all the palm trees and use like the 2 angles you could shoot that school from, where it's not obvious it's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, there's a lot of palm trees in that skyline.
Also, the high school from Nightmare on Elm Street, which 2 movies couldn't be more different.
Both high on my list.
Oh yeah, when did you first move out to LA? Were you an adult already, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a little bit when I was a kid, I lived in Palm Springs, California. My parents were in the hotel business, and one time my mom was checking in some people at the hotel at the Hilton where she worked, and she said, Van Halen. Gosh, this sounds familiar. Is your name, are you in a rock band of some kind? And my mom is talking to Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth, and it is 1984, right? And they're like, we play a little. And when she came home and told me, I was like, and she was like, well, if Valerie Bertinelli had come down the stairs, I would have known who he was. She's way more famous. And that is how I wrapped it up to your cover.
You are much more professional than I am. I'm going to tie that back to this, and I thank you for doing so. Also, there was MTV at a contest called MTV's Lost Weekend with Van Halen in 1984.
I recall.
I tracked down.
I think that maybe is why they were in town.
Yeah, I tracked down the winner of that contest and had him on the show. And he's just this guy from Pennsylvania, and listening to his tales of, he's like 17 with Van Halen in 1984. The video for Panama, that's from the shows that he was at for the weekend.
Yeah, this is when they were like, they came to Palm Springs to do some like motorcycle riding or something.
And Valerie Bertinelli was bartending backstage. So she has this sort of sweet and innocent thing going on, but she was getting everybody loaded.
Sure. As was her job, I'm sure.
Yes.
At the time.
Absolutely. So she's on the cover here. Weirdly though, this is sort of the tail end of One Day at a Time, where she was sort of sweet and innocent in One Day at a Time, even though she was the one everyone had a crush on. But I mean, on the cover here, they've really, like, it looks like there's fire behind her, even though I don't think there is. I
think that's because of the Billy Graham. There's just a lot of Billy Graham in this TV guide, and I don't remember this much Billy Graham, but he's on the cover warning. I see dangers ahead, and then here's Valerie Bertinelli.
She's like, I am Satan. I think maybe because this is around Easter. So Billy Graham would do like an Easter thing, I think. But I don't really know. But yeah, it is really weird. It's her name is also very small on the cover. Like, I assume everybody just knew who she was because it's Billy Graham, Peter O'Toole and Jodie Foster, and then really tiny on the bottom it says Valerie Bertinelli. But
yeah, her hair is most of the TV Guide cover.
it is. It's large. She's sort of a lioness going.
Yes.
No, it's more of a, but with tiger eye, like cat eye going.
There's a feline nature to the whole thing.
It's a whole look.
But she's cute. She looks very cute.
She looks great. She almost like an evil Susan Lucci, but a little more angelic. So we do have this big article in here on TV evangelism, and it has a really cool piece of art, I will say, where it's a cross with a television in the middle, and it's just like, it looks like it should be the cover of a Dead Kennedys record. That's
true. This does seem like we're going to look up this artist because I feel like it's a bit subversive.
Oh, big time. What is it? Teresa? Oh, and a woman artist. That's actually really cool for this time. But that's one thing I always, is her last name Gasoline?
Well, I thought it was Vaseline. Let me see. I think you might be right.
Vaseline might be an F.
Vaseline. Yeah. I'm going to look her up while you talk.
Yeah. But they would commission art. Like magazines don't commission art anymore. Like, if there even are magazines left, they barely have photo shoots anymore. So there were all these people commissioning art, which is amazing.
Her name is Teresa Fasolino. Here she is on illustrationhistory.org at the Norman Rockwell Museum. I'm going to put it in the chat so you can see.
That's a site that I had not been aware of. But that's pretty fantastic. I wonder if the rest of her stuff is as subversive, and it is.
Oh, she's done stamps. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, she does these sort of weird mashup, kind of bizarre high art, pop culture-y type stuff. Very nice.
Yeah.
There's one here called Death at a Bar that looks really.
Yeah,
I would
look at Death at a Bar. That's great.
I'd award that a blue ribbon. It's made me sad.
Yes, it does seem. Yes, you know where Death at the Bar looks like. You really do need to look it up. It is like, oh, there was a fight at a Berkeley pub.
And this is the aftermath. Like
the aftermath.
There are corduroy patches soaked in blood. Somewhere.
Yeah, oh man, they keep getting. Yeah, go through. This is great. Oh, there's a lot of death and murder.
Oh, yeah. This is the discovery of the week here that this artist has done this. Then you have this big article on Peter O'Toole, which is very strange because he is not a television actor, although he and Jodie Foster are in a TV movie together called Svengali, which I do not remember.
No, I don't recall this either. What does it say here? I needed a fresh young actress because this is the story about a unique love affair between an older man and a very young girl. Jodie Foster, in my opinion, is the most talented film actress of her generation. So there you go.
That sounds incredibly creepy. I suspect the movie probably is, given the time. But yeah, I may check that out. So some interesting stuff this week. It's a very weird week, I will say. This is sort of, we've just come back from like the mid-season hiatus. We haven't quite got to sweeps yet. So it's this sort of mid-season replacement stuff, but also a few reruns, and it's just sort of a weird thing going on, which is why I think the thing you picked, the thing that made you pick this issue, aired this week when we get to it, because it was that weird sort of dead zone where they're like, I don't know what to put on.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that were like, this was supposed to air last week and next week's will air tomorrow, and sorry.
Yeah, like we I don't know, we just stopped paying attention. So let's dive into here. Saturday, what'd you do?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm about to turn 8 like a month from now, just putting you where I was. And I live in Oakton, Virginia.
Okay.
I live outside the DC area. Okay. At 8:00, I'm watching Diff'rent Strokes, per law, I'm supposing. At 8:30, I'm watching Silver Spoons. At 9:00, I'm watching The Jazz Singer, the 1980 Neil Diamond movie.
That's a weird. Let's unpack
this
that
soundtrack.
one for a moment.
This soundtrack is basically the sound of my childhood. Probably I'm not watching it, but my dad's watching it. And then I heard "Love on the Rocks" coming from the other room. So then I was like, oh, Jazz Singer's on somewhere. And then I'm not really allowed to watch this movie very much, but I am allowed to listen to all the songs.
Well, he is the Jewish Elvis.
Well, I wasn't allowed. I mean, nothing about the jazz singer isn't problematic now, but I wasn't allowed to watch Love Boat. And Mama's Family sometimes made me uncomfortable because I felt like maybe I wasn't getting the joke. It felt like people were being laughed at. And I just had that weird, I think maybe I'm not getting the joke feeling when I was little.
I mean, I hate Mama's Family. It may be my least favorite sitcom of all time. Like, it is.
Still could sing the theme song to you or right now.
Oh,
but
I watched it every week.
Yeah.
I hated every second of it because that's what we did. Yeah.
Yeah. You had no choice there. And also I would have been very confused by Jeff Conway in Wizards and Warriors. I can't believe how often Grease is coming up in the short time we've been talking, but it sort of was the center of my concept of existence. And also, my boyfriend. So
it was massive. Yes. I mean, that was huge. Like people can't underestimate the 70s nostalgia for the 50s being, because that's really, and I've said on the show before, nostalgia was invented in the 1970s for the 50s. It's the first time we got those 20-year cycles, because in the 60s people weren't having 40s nostalgia. It was like the very first time we got that. And you had American Graffiti and Happy Days and Grease, and it all sort of was of a piece with that sort of thing. So we're sort of just getting out of that as a culture, I think, by 1983. Like the 80s are just sort of starting where it's no longer the 50s are the cool thing.
Right now is cool.
And Wizards and Warriors is so very now. Have you seen that show?
I don't think I have. The ad was funny. The ad was enough where I was like, what is happening?
The ad is basically like it looks like it should be airbrushed on the side of a van.
Yes.
And Julia Duffy was in the show, who's a friend. And actually, when I was scanning this, I sent this to her and she was just like, oh my God. And I was like, did they ever give you the art they would commission? Because if I was her, I would want this piece.
I would too. This looks like she is the star of a Choose Your Own Adventure series come to life. That's what the art style is here. I didn't even realize that's Julia Duffy, but now I see. Yeah.
Now you can't unsee it.
Now I can't not see it. Yes. Yeah. It's like, she's cosplaying.
Yeah. And this was trying to capitalize on the popularity of Dungeons and Dragons. And 2 years before this, there was a made-for-TV scare movie called Mazes and Monsters that was an anti-Dungeons and Dragons movie with Tom Hanks in it about these teenagers who play Dungeons and Dragons and then all kill themselves because of Satan. So 2 years later, they're like, maybe it's okay. And we got this and we got the Saturday morning cartoon like in the same year. And this was a pretty big budget show that did not even last an entire season.
It must have cost way too much.
It cost a lot of money. Jeff Conway was the star as Prince Eric Greystone. He is this episode. He's forced to postpone his marriage to the Princess of Camarand and defend her kingdom from attack by Prince Blackpool, played by Duncan Rieger, who is Dracula in the Monster Squad, who's wearing this is the best part, who's wearing a monocle that empowers him to use black magic. Mm-hmm. Checks out. Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
An evil monocle.
Like because you've written stories and movies and television, and can you imagine pitching a black magic monocle ever?
Well, I mean, it depends on the sponsor of the show.
Like if it's a monocle company?
Yes. If I'm in the pocket of big monocle, you just have to sometimes.
Yeah. Maniacal monocle. And they didn't call it a maniacal monocle. Like
it is myopic though.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. He was blinded by his own hatred for two glasses. But that was a big show and it was very exciting. And I remember watching it as a kid and being like, this is like a movie on television every week. It's like Krull. And then it just didn't do it. Diff'rent Strokes was sort of almost over by this point, but it hadn't moved to networks yet. We hadn't introduced Danny Cooksey on the show yet as Sam, but I would have watched it. Silver Spoons, this was the last season before they moved it to Sunday nights and paired it with Punky Brewster. this is a pilot played by John Riley, and I assume it's not John C. Riley. It's the reason John C. Riley has a C. I'm thinking.
He's the reason. We found it. Another mystery solved.
Yes. And it'd be, John Riley's only in this as a pilot who becomes the Stratton's unwelcome house guest after he crash lands in their backyard just to impress an old flame.
Well, look, I'm going to look and see just to be sure. Yeah, it's some other dude. Here we go. Here's what he looks like.
John
Riley. He might be, I don't know. John C. Riley. Hold on.
How weird.
They have a similar look, is what I'm going to say.
John C. Riley had to be too young at that point.
No, I don't mean it's the same one. It just might be a family name. Let's see here.
Oh, and you actually got one from the show. Oh, he looks a little like Lee Majors. He's got kind of he does look like a pilot who would crash land into the Stratton's house to impress an old flame. I feel like it was people trying to pitch any crazy thing, and you would have like get out of jail, like free concept things where it'd be like, how about he has a monocle? And they're like, that's kind of stupid. It's black magic. Cool. Or they're like, yeah, he crash lands.
You're right. He did just walk up and before he even spoke, they're like, you got the part. But yeah. I will say John Riley, who passed away just a couple of months ago, was in General Hospital, Sunset Beach, Passions. He's like
a soap guy.
He's a soap guy. He had a recurring role on Dallas. He was on. I'm sorry, everybody. These are just the shows I didn't
soaps,
watch.
Yeah, I am just a total blank on soaps, and it's a really rabid fan base, and they know everything about the soaps people. And that if I get chided when I don't know the soap people, and he
took over some important parts on Passions, and he was on General Hospital quite a bit. It looks like, that
would impress an old flame.
He's survived by his wife Liz and 5 daughters.
Oh, wow!
And 2 grandchildren. None of them is John C. Riley.
Good on you, John Riley. So your parents did have rules then here. You're saying you were not allowed to watch Love Boat, presumably because it was too sexual?
Mm-hmm. It was just grown-up-y. Often, I really wasn't allowed to watch Diff'rent Strokes either, but they kind of just weren't paying attention. Like I would have my hand ready to change the channel, where you stand at the TV with your hand on the button, that kind, because my mom genuinely thinks that all of children, like just children as a group of humans, stopped being good when television let kids say mean things or make the jokes.
Oh, she doesn't like backtalk.
She does not. And for whatever reason, Diff'rent Strokes, which was so kid-centric, we saw about 13 seconds of The Simpsons as a family before that was cut off. I was not allowed to watch Married with Children. If it has a kid with something to say, that thing was not allowed.
Well, Diff'rent Strokes did have the original talk back kid catchphrase of what you're talking about, which it's funny now that you've mentioned that. Can you imagine, I remember if you saw a kid swear in real life, or in front, if they said what you talking about to their parent, you would just be like it was shocking in real life, TV or whatever. But
yeah, well, my mom wasn't having any of it. So yeah. And so I remember getting to sometimes watch Fantasy Island a little bit because that would be confusing. It was just weird enough that they were like, this is fine. Or I could at least watch the opening credits.
Because Fantasy Island was the more
I know
sexual show, I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's Love Boat Tonight, which is hilarious that your parents are like, that thing's too racy. The very first sentence here is Gopher's uncle, played by Red Buttons, secretly opens a shop in his cabin, undercutting the ship's boutique. This is just not one that I would be like, oh no, that's not.
But Vicky gets involved with a teenager who pops pills to compensate for his neglectful mother. So what it more is, it's not the sexy, it's about kids just like inappropriate children. This is and also she genuinely doesn't find funny people funny. Like it is it's like she doesn't, if you are a comic who's telling a joke, my mom is over you.
What is she like?
And the more you're trying and the more you seem to know you're funny, the less my mom wants to hear what you have to say.
Would you watch her? Did she laugh at anything when you were growing up? Like, was there a show that she just loved?
Yes. The story goes, and I don't even remember which one of us she had given birth to, but I'm going to guess it was my sister. But the story goes, she found Mork and Mindy in the hospital bed, and she couldn't stop laughing and asked, what was this? So my mom really likes silly. And she likes, so like Jerry Lewis being silly, or Red Buttons, or someone who's going to be like, oh my gosh, Gallagher was the best thing.
Oh, good Lord. He's the only person I ever faked a phone call so I could get away from.
I'm just saying, like, nothing is necessarily mean-spirited. It's really hard for her to get into a acceptance of Bill Cosby. Like this, like she likes slice of life, but she doesn't like truth. And she genuinely finds anything. She doesn't like Mel Brooks so much that she doesn't like Albert Brooks. And
they're no relation at all.
No relation at all. She's just like, I know they're trying to make me watch more of their things. Who knows? Steve Martin, anything on Saturday Night Live. Oh, I mean, I think maybe the Smothers Brothers is probably where she was like, they're okay, but one of them's a little smug. She doesn't enjoy a smug.
Oh, so does she hate magicians?
It was a tough room.
Because that is smugness as an art.
No, she likes magicians, but that's because they have. She doesn't know how they're doing that. That's amazing.
I see.
She knows how you're being funny.
Yeah. She goes, I see what you're doing.
I see what you're doing. It's not clever. But when you do make her laugh, the first time I ever made her laugh, that's how I knew this was all I was going to do for the rest of my life. My dad was also a tough room. So people were like, when did you first start thinking you were funny? And I was like, I'm still not sure now, honestly.
We're supposed to think that?
It's the one thing I got told a lot growing up is, I know you think you're funny.
Oh,
but that's
same.
not funny.
Yeah. I remember whenever I like day job, someone will ever find out I do stand up or something. And I remember this one woman, and I quote this often now. She looks at me and she goes, "You're not funny." And I was like, yeah, I'm in an office. Like I'm at work. Like I'm not like, but it still hurt.
It does. I can hear it. I'm sorry.
Have they watched your stuff, like movies you've written or things like that, and laughed or?
Well, my father passed away some time ago, but before sort of. I will say, sure.
I believe they did.
I know my mom has seen some of it. Some of it she is not going to want to see. And also she'll say things like, I just remember when I was first out here, she's like, well, just whatever you do, please don't write for that Sex in the City. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
yes. Yeah. Don't get wrapped up in that.
Don't become the new Arnold out there. Yeah. So, she has her thing. Her Christmas movie is Die Hard.
She loves Die Hard though?
She loves an action movie. That's what she doesn't want. Her least favorite film is Goodfellas, and her favorite film.
I hate Goodfellas.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if it's a little true, she's not into it.
Okay. She wants pure fantasy.
Pure fantasy.
Pure impersonal fantasy.
Absolutely. Is Tom Cruise taking his face off? Oh, it's amazing. Let's watch it 3 times.
Okay. So she's a big Vanilla Sky fan.
And I don't know about that one. That one seems a little, but they also, I was reading at a very early age. That's the TV Guide. That was the first thing they would find me reading. I was like 2 or 3 and reading the TV Guide.
Cover to cover, same.
Cover to cover. Look, Here we are. We found each other. And so they didn't know what to do with me. And eventually they just started giving me Stephen King books. And I was about 7. Really?
Yes. Which
my gosh. I thought you looked familiar mentally.
Yes,
no, it's not appropriate.
No. I remember one of the first Stephen King books I read was The Rage, which is one of the Bachman books, which is literally basically like Columbine the book.
Yes, Columbine the book.
Yeah. Then I read The Stand, and that was
my first one was Pet Sematary.
Maybe the grimmest, most depressing book I've ever read, and I've read all of Hubert Selvey Jr.'s books. Last Exit to Brooklyn. All that, and Pet Cemetery is so unrelentingly grim. It's easily Stephen King's most depressing book.
We're like a science experiment, you and I. I wonder how many other things we should. When's your birthday?
June.
April.
Okay.
This is it. This is where were you born?
Yes. I was born here in Boston.
Oh, see? Well, but we still have where are your parents from?
But here, they never really left.
Mine are from Connecticut.
Oh, very interesting.
We'll figure this out.
Yeah, we'll do a DNA test.
We will not. I was just about to say we will not share 23andMe.
No.
I don't want to know.
I don't want to be in that database. Yeah, but Stephen King stuff was everything here, especially because it was New England.
Sure.
So it was like it extra bothered me as a kid because he would write about like places I'd been to and like I knew. And I to this day still have nightmares about the Lot 6 scene in the Firestarter movie with Heather Locklear. That scene, and it's badly done, and it still bothers me.
My first Stephen King film that I was exposed to was The Shining on TV with a babysitter. But the first one I remember my mom being like, "We could watch this," is Cujo, and I'm still not okay.
Yeah,
I only just now have a dog. It took a long time.
That is, I mean, we saw like Stand By Me, but like I loved Salem's Lot. Loved it. And that's still, I think, maybe the best made for TV movie ever.
That was my mom's favorite book. That was her first like introduction to Stephen King. And then that's been it.
So she had read it and still let you read it.
Well, yes, but I remember not really reading that one until I was older because vampires were never really my thing.
Okay.
And she kept making it seem like that one was going to be scarier than all of the others.
So she was daring it. She was like, it's too scary for you?
She was just like, ooh, that one. And I was like, I don't know. These other ones have been pretty scary.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm ready for Salem's Lot. So by the time I read it, I was like, this is relatively tame. I've read Carrie. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing. I will say the best thing about that is, and if people are playing TV guidance counselor bingo at home, I'm about to mention Dance Macabre. Is
this a thing? No.
Yeah. The Stephen King nonfiction, his book about horror fiction, Dance Macabre, was everything. When I was a kid and I read that, I was like, I understand how stories work now. Like this just blew my mind about how things are made. And him writing about a movie like Tourist Trap or like, you know, the theory of like the clown at midnight and all that stuff as like a 6-year-old, I was like, I get it, man.
Yeah.
Perfect. So it was sort of educational. Yeah. Is he in blackface in The Jazz Singer? I've never seen it.
I don't think so. I don't remember this movie. While I know that I would have turned it on to listen to the music, I probably would have done something else while it was on. But I really these songs are still phenomenal songs. America and Love on the Rocks. I think Amazed. I'm amazed. I think is in this one. And Confused. Like it's wonderful.
Every Neil Diamond song inevitably in my head turns into Heartlight. It can start as any song. It ends as Heartlight. That's the only. They're coming to turn on your Heartlight.
Well, it's a
sweet
later
Heartlight.
gem. You're not a Sweet Caroline. Like there are a lot of deep diamond. Well,
deep diamond. The diamond mine.
Yes, that's true.
I love the movie Beautiful Girls.
No,
which I like that movie. It's. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm just a big Rosie O'Donnell fan. That's not true. But that movie feels like people I grew up with. I think who I don't even like, but for some reason I have an affection to them in that movie. And I overlook the whole creepy Natalie Portman thing.
But it's so many movies. There's so many movies about people thinking we don't know you're thinking creepy things about Natalie Portman. How many movies?
Yeah. Pretty much every movie she was in.
I feel like someone should have stepped in at some point.
Yeah, like the very first one, they would have been like, I don't know if this is okay. Maybe you want to hire an adult for this.
Yeah, and then people are like, let's just keep doing it as she ages.
Yeah.
She'll eventually age out of this storyline.
It's her fault.
It's not our problem.
Aging fast enough.
That's right.
But she, weirdly, she was kind of the Jodie Foster of the 90s.
Sure. Where she didn't get to be tough. I mean, she didn't get to, she was like the manic, she was as manic pixie dream girl as you could get at some point.
In The Professional, she's like shooting dudes.
No, I understand that. But then never again.
No.
Never again. that's when she was cool and allowed to like have some agency. And then after that, it was like, put this music on, Natalie. Let me change your life. You know what I mean? Like,
the lesson they learned was don't give her a gun again.
Yes.
It would have been great if she shot people in Beautiful Girls. So that is a damn good Saturday night, I will say. Yes.
That was a good Saturday night. I definitely was trying to stay up for Saturday Night Live, which I would do every Saturday if I could.
What's your favorite era of Saturday Night Live? So this is a rerun. This is the episode that Drew Barrymore hosted. And for years, she was the youngest host of SNL until she was dethroned by Macaulay Culkin.
That's interesting. What's so funny is because I moved around a lot, I have to remember what time zone things are in for prime time because I spent so much time in Central.
Oh, that's crazy to me.
Some people call God's time zone, by the way.
Yeah. Well, you get an extra
things
hour.
are on at a normal time. Yes. So I can't actually even quickly find
this particular episode. Speaking of inappropriate to children, I remember in the cold open, they are all in Drew Barrymore's bedroom, like the whole cast, and they are like, oh, we're cutting some sketches tonight. And Gary Kroger goes, you mean we're cutting Frontier Gynecologist? And he's in a cowboy outfit and he takes off rubber gloves and throws them down. And Drew Barrymore's just sitting there. And I just, even as a kid, I was like, no.
Wow. Poor Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I probably stayed up and watched that and maybe I didn't get that joke. Or, this is the thing. Like I could watch that, but not Diff'rent Strokes.
Not Diff'rent Strokes. That's so weird to me. Maybe your mother just hated Conrad Bain. Because he seems like a guy that like a mom would just be like, I hate that guy. I don't know why.
No, like, no. An older grumpy man is fine. She loved The Odd Couple.
Oh, weird.
I know. You can't try to guess it. You can't.
Yeah. Something against.
Should we do Sunday?
Yeah, let's do Sunday. I'm sorry. Let's
Sunday.
move on. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm watching Chips at 8:00, which I cannot believe is an hour long. I don't remember it being an hour long. Doesn't that seem like a little tight half hour in your memory?
No,
I guess
because
not.
it's
You're like, I talk about Chips every week, but
no, rarely we do. Weirdly, but all the action show, I was like, if it's shot on film, single cam, it's got to be an hour.
Well, I ended up going down a small rabbit hole here because on this description of Chips, let me pull it up here.
This is an undercover one where they are first. There's two really amazing things about this episode. They're undercover as a motorcycle gang. Amy Steele is in this, who was in the first Friday the 13th movie, which is pretty interesting. But there is a character named Weasel.
Here we go. This is my rabbit hole too.
Played by an actor whose name is apparently
Fred Asparagus.
Fred Asparagus.
And they have misspelled it here in the TV guide. They were like, surely it can't be asparagus, but it is. Fred Asparagus was in my beloved Terror in the Aisles, the documentary that I watched a bajillion times.
Oh, yeah, same.
Okay, do you remember the guy in the movie theater that goes, hey, how'd they do that?
Yes.
That's Fred Asparagus.
Oh, my good Lord. Now I know Fred Asparagus. Yes, okay. He's sitting next to Donald Pleasance asking how they do that. Fred Asparagus sounds like a Sesame Street puppet version of Fred Astaire. Like that they would do some weird parody. I'm like, that can't be his real name, but why would you wouldn't change? That's not a stage name.
Right. No. I mean, you just went with it.
Like, you wouldn't be like, I know people will remember me if my last name is a vegetable that makes your pee smell weird. No one will forget. Some
people can smell it and some people can't. And some people do the pee and some people don't. It's all genetic.
I've concocted a Fred Asparagus backstory.
Okay.
I believe, this is total bullshit, by the way, but here's my belief. And I truly hold this belief in my heart. He started as a stand-up comedian. And he decided that at the Comedy Store in 1975, he was going to go by Fred Asparagus so he could use the tagline, he even smells funny.
Oh, now that I will just go ahead and share that. Like, that's his new rumor.
Yeah.
He played Jerry Garcia in an episode of Roseanne.
Oh, yes. Yes, he comes to her in a dream and she names her kid Jerry.
There you go. He was in Three Amigos as the bartender. He was in Beverly Hills Cop 3 as Bobby. He was in Spinal Tap as Joe Mama Besser.
Okay.
He was in Steal Big, Steal Little, Something Wilder, Who's the Boss, Falcon Crest. He played three episodes of Falcon Crest, and the Lords of Magic, Cheers. He was on an episode of Cheers. This guy
Is Fred Asparagus still with us? I would be surprised if he was still with us.
But Chips, I believe, was his first credited role. No, he passed away in the late 90s.
Okay,
in his early 50s, quite young.
So this was Biker Gang Central, which was huge in the 70s and 80s. There was always like an evil biker gang at some point.
Yeah,
most shows.
Yeah, he was that dude.
Also, Eric Estrada. He's not being convincing as an undercover biker. There's no way. Like, this beautiful Hispanic man comes in and he's all like charm and whatever. And they're like, yeah, he's like a motorcycle gang guy. Totally.
Look at his teeth. Yeah, just great. I saw him once in real life walking towards me on a set, and like a lot, like a big lot.
Yeah.
And he could tell in my eyes. I went, oh my gosh, is that Eric Estrada? Just with my eyes. And then he looked at me and broke into a smile. And with his eyes, he said, goddamn right, I'm Eric Estrada.
Of course. He's got the C nose. It's Eric Estrada.
It was great.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, I would have had to watch that as well. And that's an hour. And then would you watch after Chips?
Then I'm turning on The Demon Murder Case, which is what we're here. So this is the highlight of the week for me.
Yes. I had totally forgotten about this until you mentioned it. This is a rip from the headlines based on a true story made for TV movie. The ad is amazing. It has a kid praying in a very gloomy bed that says, "And please don't let me kill again." Mm-hmm. It's got Eddie Albert in it, who I love. Who's one of the best angry people ever. Andy Griffith, Cloris Leachman, and speaking of Friday the 13th, Kevin Bacon.
It's also known as the Devil Made Me Do It case, the first known court case in the U.S. and where the defense sought to prove innocence based on the defendant's claim of demonic possession and denial of personal responsibility for the crime. So this was like pre-satanic panic. Like here you are, Billy Graham's all over TV Guide. It's Easter, and now we're watching some satanic panic television. That is what's going on here.
And it's mostly so. I feel like the still they've used is misrepresentative of this TV movie. So it's literally a kid levitating above a bed with a priest there. Mm-hmm. But my memory of this is mostly like a courtroom drama.
Right. I remember that too. You can still see the movie on YouTube. So I pulled it up and it begins too scary. And I remember that I found it all too scary because it begins with like this disclaimer of like, this isn't real, but is it? And some people know it is, but it isn't. But like, what are demons? But are they? And then, then the movie starts. I just wanted to see, like I said, I saw this at the rerun post Footloose when my new imaginary boyfriend was Kevin Bacon. And so I wanted to see everything he had ever done. So I was very excited to watch this, which turns out was very much like The Exorcist, the scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life as a 4 or 5 year old when my babysitter let me watch it. And
my uncle let me watch it at that age on HBO.
See, look at us. It's not okay.
No. And were you living in the DC area still at that time when you saw it?
I was living in Texas.
Oh, so at least you weren't near like the stairs. Because in theory, if you because I've been to the Exorcist stairs, which is very
when I saw the Exorcist, I guess I was in Pennsylvania, but it's not like I went anywhere or saw anything.
True. Yeah, I love
they didn't let me drive.
For people in the DC area, if you're visiting when the plague is over, if it ever is, the Exorcist stairs are about a half a block from the bar from St. Elmo's Fire. Gosh. Which is perfect. I love these made-for-TV horror movies. The early 80s is just the golden age of them. There are some great ones. Maybe my favorite I've ever seen, Invitation to Hell.
I have not seen this.
Stars Susan Lucci and Robert Urich, TV Spencer for Hire. It's sort of about a hellfire club
Directed by Wes Craven.
Directed by Wes Craven, who did a number of made-for-TV movies. They hired a bunch of exploitation directors because they knew they could pump these things out. He also did Deadly Harvest, I think, and one called Chiller, I want to say, and one with Linda Blair as like a killer kid.
Guess who plays Chrissy Winslow in Invitation to Hell? Punky Brewster.
Oh, is she really in that? Oh, wow. I haven't seen it in so long, but my favorite thing about it is Robert Urich is an inventor, obviously, and he invents a hell-proof suit and walks into hell wearing it. It's like a fireman's outfit to go to hell in.
Where do you clean your hell suit? Where do you get that? You have to dry clean that or evil clean it?
I think you probably have to just have a priest come and wash it down with holy water and a little club soda. Little club soda.
That's what little club soda,
yep.
Little holy water, and that will get the possession right out. So you have to. So I say you need to make it pure again every time before you go into hell.
That's right. Yeah, obviously. I mean,
I was thinking the other way. Yeah. I assumed like an invisibility cloak, it had to seem hellish for you to be able to get in.
Oh, I thought you were saying the other way, like you had to like go out and like cover it in sin. So it's got like dirty magazines taped to it and like cigarettes and all kinds of stuff so that you could get into hell. If you're a person watching television on Sunday night in March 1983, you had a tough choice at 9:00 between made-for-TV movies because you have the Demon Murder Case, and then on ABC, The Babysitter, starring Phoebe Cates, and this is two sisters, one man, and a temptation that was stronger than love. Babysitter.
Yeah, well, I think now we know what everyone else is watching because I would probably be checking out the Phoebe Cates at this point.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe
this is prime Phoebe Cates though. This is like the same year as Gremlins.
Yeah,
I mean that's pretty good.
Another movie that made my mom really angry.
Gremlins did.
Yeah, it ruins. I don't know. Do small Christmas? Children listen to this thing. It ruins Christmas.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. My mom shouted at that movie theater. Well, thanks a lot.
Is that how you found out?
She covered Ears Fast, but I think I was old enough to know, but it was about my little sister.
Yeah. I remember weirdly Gremlins was like one of my favorite movies. I always say it was like my Star Wars. And for some reason it didn't pick up to me that gives it away, because I remember distinctly it was like 4 or 5 years later, one of my neighbors, I was like at their house before school one day, and their older brother was like, well, and then of course, Santa's your parents. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't know. And I totally played it off. He didn't know that he had just told me. And maybe he still doesn't know to this day. So Sunday night, there's two sinful movies on Sunday night. What are you doing Monday?
Just before we leave here, I need you to know that Gremlins helped change the rating system.
It's first PG-13?
I think it was after that. Like because of the Christmassy thing and all the kids being scared, Spielberg was like, maybe we need a little in the middle thing. And I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark that, or Temple of Doom that needed like.
Because a man's heart gets ripped out of him. I rewatched that for the first time since I saw it in the theater, like recently, and it is awful.
This is why you got to leave some things behind.
Yeah, it is just like a xenophobic, terrible movie filled with terrible people.
Monday, I'm watching That's Incredible at 8:00.
Of course.
I was sad to not be able to find it online because it's got a roller skater who travels by hanging onto cars. I'd like to watch that. That's incredible. And then at 8:30.
That seems like bad for kids.
No, it is bad for kids. At 8:30, I want to know what Small and Fry is. So luckily, there's a little bit of it online, and including the opening score for the opening credits for Small and Fry. Do you know what Small and Fry is?
No. I've never even heard of it. That is going to be a mid-season replacement.
It didn't last very long. It's a made by Disney, but you really can't tell. But it's about a detective. You should just watch it. I don't want to ruin anything.
I mean, I'm sure people can probably accurately guess what it's probably about. It's literally also the only thing on at 8:30. Darren McGavin and Jack Blessing.
Oh, won't let me share the screen. Yes.
Oh, it's even better than I thought it was.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
Stolen Stradivarius. Oh yeah, this sounds amazing. It's the debut of first.
Yes. Did you
episode.
click this YouTube link I put in the chat?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
This
What happens now.
This is great.
I love that it has a voiceover. Here's my daughter. She thinks Chip's fantastic.
Yeah.
A small problem.
This needs a reboot. That's what I'm saying. If anything needs a reboot, it's Small and Fry. Also, I like that they pretend like that's a phrase. It's Small Fry, not Small and Fry. Like that doesn't work. That's not like Cannon and Ball or something, like that.
Think about yes. And apparently he can't control his smallness and he can't just like get big or small whenever he wants. And that's the main complication of all of the detective policing problems that they get into.
That's most men's problem.
And I have to assume it's a lot of like one small problem, like just week after week.
Just one thing. Disney.
The first episode is called. I'm so sorry, I can't even.
No.
First episode is called. Hoof. Oh, damn it! The one about the cello is called. I wrote it down.
The Stradivarius.
Yes, it's called. Oh, right. This is what it was. I've got too many notes open at once while I'm also Googling for you, and now I've lost everything I'm doing. Hold on.
Disney, while you're looking that up, they in the 80s really tried to push. They really wanted a detective show, and they had about 7 pilots for really high concept detective shows, none of which flew. And one of my favorites has my friend Molly Hagan in it, and it's Molly Hagan and George Carlin. And George Carlin plays a ghost detective, meaning not a guy who detects ghosts, a ghost who is a detective.
Yes.
And his name is, and it's also the name of the series, Justin Case.
Yeah. This is very familiar. The pilot episode of Small and Fry is called Fiddler on the Hoof. And hold for endless laughter. But so this Small and Fry was about a violin, and then I would have changed it at 9:00 to Alice, which is an episode about a cello.
That's a stringy
there are no
night.
Coincidences.
That's a string night.
Pulling
and
on
you
your
would
heartstrings.
Passed up another made-for-TV movie, which has an amazing tagline, which I don't think was. They seem to have stolen this from something, but I can't place it. It's called Deadly Lessons, and it says, "Kiss the girls and make them sigh, hunt them down and watch them die."
Yeah, look at this.
Like a sorority slasher movie, but made for TV.
Yes, I definitely would have watched this now. I will watch this tonight.
I would like to watch this tonight as well.
This looks amazing.
And again, we have battling made for TV movies at this time, because also at 9:00, and I did look this up because I couldn't believe this was a real thing. There is a made for TV movie with Richard Thomas of the Waltons and of It, the miniseries, playing Hank Williams Jr., the Are You Ready for Some Football, All My Rowdy Friends, Hank Williams Jr. And this is a made-for-TV movie based on his own autobiography. And it says, a heroic story of a man trapped in the shadow of his father's legend. A sudden tragedy and a special love turned his life around. Living proof. The Hank Williams Jr. story. Wow. Richard Thomas.
Did you click the Naomi Judd felt awkward kissing Richard Thomas in Living Proof, the Hank Williams Jr. story that came out 1 month ago on wideopencountry.com?
No, I'm surprised that has, I think, first of all, nothing against Richard Thomas, but I think everything I've seen him in, it's awkward to kiss him. But he's not who I would cast as Hank Williams Jr. in 1983.
No, I suppose not.
I'd go Belushi.
It is on the internet if you want to see it. And listen, Deadly Lessons has Donna Reed and Ali Sheedy and Nancy Cartwright. Did you already say this while I was reading this?
No.
Look at it.
It's an amazing cast.
Yes. I would watch. Bill Paxton.
Yep. Early Bill Paxton. He had only been in one other horror movie at that time. He was in Mausoleum, I think it was.
This movie's also known as High School Killer. Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this one.
That's
okay.
Good.
So
that's Tuesday. Monday, Tuesday. This is a killer, no pun intended, killer week for TV movies.
It's doing very well. Tuesdays, Happy Days, and then Laverne and Shirley. And this Laverne and Shirley is with Carrie Fisher. Laverne and Carrie are both trying to become bunnies at the Bunny Club with Hugh Hefner appearing. This episode was co-written by Ed Solomon, which both sounds like I'm going to break into a song from Bye Bye Birdie. And do you know that he was the youngest person to enter the Writers Guild because of getting a job on Laverne and Shirley?
I had Ed on and we discussed this episode.
Did you really?
Yes.
It's funny.
It occurred to him that because I'm like, all those Gary Marshall shows just stopped pretending they were in the 50s after a while. And then he legitimately went, yeah, that was supposed to be in the 50s, wasn't it? Because they just didn't bother. Because I
always felt like once they moved to like LA and there were palm trees, like they also time machined. It just felt like they were down the street from Chrissy and Jack. Yeah.
And this one, like, it's just Laverne. Like, Shirley has left the show by this point, even though she's still in the credits.
Yeah.
And Penny Marshall and Carrie Fisher were just good buddies. So it was like, I just have her come down and we'll dress up like Playboy bunnies.
It's great. And Penny Marshall is so funny in the scene where she's spilling milk and Pepsi all over Hugh Hefner and cleaning it up with her bunny butt. It's so funny.
Have you ever tried the milk and Pepsi?
I'm sure I did at the time because she made it seem very good.
Yeah. I was like, it's okay. Yeah, you got the big ragu here. It was also one of those shows where people move to a different city and all their friends do too.
Well, as someone who moved every 6 months, that is what I thought was going to happen. I mean, that is what I was led to believe.
Like you'd have a caravan.
I had all these imaginary friends. Yes. So I had all these imaginary friends. They were all celebrities because they were the only ones who moved with me.
I mean, that's something beautiful and sweet about that. And a little bit sad. It's a Blue Ribbon thing.
It is a real Blue Ribbon moment. It's true.
Then what'd you do at 9?
Is that when Three's Company's on?
It is.
That's when I'm watching.
The final season.
I wrote at 9:30. Listen, I'm just waiting for not necessarily the news. I'll probably go eat some potato chips and watch some MTV.
I felt so sophisticated watching not necessarily the news, not getting any of the jokes on it.
I
love Sniglets, but everything else, yes. I'm like that Reagan. Gaddafi, you say? Just like, no idea.
Well, yes. I mean, that's the thing. Later when we talk about real people, I was like, I'll check in on these jokes. And I was like, why did I think this was wonderful?
Oh yeah. It's not.
It's not.
I went back and revisited not necessarily the news. So I'm like, this has got to be like a lost gem. And it's not. It just isn't. I
still know Stuart Pankin's name, and that's impressive. On Wednesday before primetime, I'm watching HBO's Brain Games.
I love Brain Games so fucking much.
So much. Brain Games is
now over. Did you have a favorite Brain Game? Because so for people that don't know, HBO had, and I believe I've looked this up, and I think there's only like 6 episodes of Brain Games.
I watched them over and over.
Over and over again. And it would be, I think they had about maybe 10 or 12 games, and there would be like 3 to 4 per episode, so that they could they were like modular. They could just like re-edit the 6 episodes into a bunch of them. And I had 2 favorite ones.
Okay.
One was the cards that turned into like an alligator that bit the guy's hand. Do you remember that one? And then the other one was they're picking socks, like different colored socks out of a thing. And you had to do like a math thing. But for some reason I found they were like anthropomorphic socks. I found them really fun as a kid. So when it would come on, I'd be like, yes, it's this one.
I remember the eyeball twisters.
Yep.
And and Digitville.
Digitville, yes. Digitville freaked me out a little bit because it was too much math. I was like, I don't understand. They're talking about even odd number. I don't know what's happening. And then there was one that used to make me mad because it was too easy. And it was the one where it was etching the picture of the person in like a laser, and you had to guess who it was going to be. And they started getting more close, and it was always super easy. And I'm like, it's the Incredible Hulk. What are we even doing here?
Guess who created Brain Games? Or do you already know?
I don't know.
Sheila Nevins.
Really? It's a great
Lady-
show.
That lady knows what she's doing.
HBO had a lot of good kids shows. Encyclopedia was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Break Games was amazing. They're all on YouTube, by the way.
Oh, good. Well, all 5 of them.
Yeah, all 5 of them.
Go watch
Yeah, it was really hard to do.
So at 8:00, I'm watching Real People. You can find the actual episode on Amazon Prime. And this one had one where someone is tying a cherry stem into a knot with their tongue. I think it was life-changing for me. But these days, I think I would try Livewire. If you showed me, and when I looked at this TV guide, I was like, I'm going to go put on Livewire, which when I was a kid, when I was this young, I was like, look at all these old kids talking about cool shit.
Yeah.
But I think I'd still feel that way now.
With Fred, what's his name? We did a lot of voices on Doug.
Zip, 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 zip.
And was on the new Mickey Mouse Club. Yeah, it seemed like Donahue for kids. And I remember an episode where Tom Savini is in an episode talking about special effects makeup.
The Ramones are playing.
The Ramones are on there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an interesting David Lynch fact about Real People.
Okay.
Which he discovered Alicia Witt on Real People because she's a brilliant savant genius kid, and she would play the piano and recite Shakespeare at like age 3 or 4. So she was on that, and then he cast her in Dune because of that. And then I see here the cherry stem tying, and I'm like, did David Lynch just watch Real People every week and then just recycle that in his entire catalog of things? It would make sense to me.
I mean, I imagine he's like, these are just real people. He's doing the weather and then watching Real People.
That's what I like. And I'm going down to Bob's Big Boy. And then what's at 9?
Facts of Life and then Family Ties, which seems so late. When I just think about it now, I'm up so late to watch my kid shows. But this episode of Family Ties is the quiz show one with self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Mm-hmm. It is a very important episode of Family Ties.
It really is. It's very funny. This one has one of my favorite Michael J. Fox Mallory jokes, because she wants to be on the quiz show and she goes, there's like a little voice in my head, and it says and then before she can say it, he cuts her off and he goes, I could see for miles in here. And it was just, wouldn't have been funny if Michael J. Fox didn't have the perfect delivery.
His stage fright is wonderful. Yeah. And it's just a really good episode. They give Mallory credit. The judges say it's close enough.
Yes. This one of the classic TV sitcom plots that no one I know in real life has ever had is going on a game show.
I've been on a game show.
What game show were you on?
Beat the Geeks.
Oh, Beat the Geeks with Paul Gobel.
It was Blaine Capatch's first week on the gig in the later season after Jay Keith wasn't on it anymore. And later Blaine and I ended up working together, but back then we didn't know each other. And yes, I used my end of unemployment check as my proof of residence. My last hope getting on Beat the Geeks.
Did you go as the TV geek?
No, dude, I was a contestant.
I know, but did you go up against for the TV?
Oh, did I go up against the TV geek? I did, yes. And I went up against the movie geek. And I think it was a Simpsons geek was the guest geek that week. Oh,
man. I remember Blaine Capatch describing himself when he hosted that show as if Rick Ocasek was a puppet.
Blaine is one of my favorite people.
He's
in the
best.
Whole world.
Yeah,
he's the best.
He's so funny.
He's never not funny. Oh man, he somewhere right now. He's still doing a bit from 15 years ago because the commitment is strong in that one. Yes.
It's a long con. But you've never been on a game show with your entire family, which is apparently what happens in every single sitcom that goes on for more than 3 seasons.
With my whole family, no, we would definitely be disqualified pretty early on, or my dad would ask if he could just be all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for Family Feud, it would have been like, really, I'll just do it. Yes. What are you guys going to do? I'll just do it. I'll hit the buttons. Part
of me wants to have, if I was going to write historical autobiographical fiction, which is the most self-indulgent thing I could think of, seeing my dad on Family Double Dare just have a complete meltdown might be one of the funniest things I can imagine that didn't happen.
Listen to me. This is an amazing retelling of all that jazz, but you, after your open heart surgery, and you go back through all the TV, it's like the Muppet Man, but you and all the TV that's in your head.
Yeah.
And yes, you go on double. It's like Forrest Gump. Listen, we're going to take this offline because I think we have cracked it.
We got
this
something
is really,
here.
Yeah, this is the new Dream On. We have something really good here.
I love Dream On.
I didn't notice that there was a 10 o'clock movie called Mistress Pamela. I would like to add that I probably would check that out.
I am unfamiliar with Mistress Pamela, but it does seem pretty interesting. And it's literally on against the Billy Graham Crusade.
They know what they're doing.
They absolutely do. Thursday, what'd you do?
Let's see. I wrote, maybe I'll try Fame, unless by now I'm addicted to LimeWire, which I keep wanting to call LimeWire because I'm of a certain age.
Yeah. I hated Fame and everybody loved it so much and I wanted to like it. It seemed so sophisticated when I was a kid.
There were cellos. Whenever you saw a girl playing cello, I just knew it was older than my tastes.
Laurie Singer's in this episode playing the cello. Mm-hmm. As she does in The Man with One Red Shoe.
The real strings week.
It's a string heavy week. Big string has come in and out.
And then I wrote Give Me a Break and Cheers because probably is what I was watching.
I love Give Me a Break so much.
I know where I belong. It was just every moment.
It's amazing. The second version of the theme song, which is the one you're saying there, which is the superior one where it gets all 80s soul. It sounds like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis produced it. This one, because Give Me a Break has one of my favorite named actors of all time, Dolph Sweet. Who I thought was a non-actor because he seems so like, oh, come on now. But he was a Broadway song and dance guy, which is crazy to me. But to make it even crazier, this episode has a character whose name is Swackhammer.
Listen, sometimes when you're working on a multicam, it's 3 a.m. when you've come up with how you're going to do something and you are punchy.
Yes.
And you name someone Swackhammer. And then in the morning they've cast him with Jack Fletcher and you're like, oh,
poor Jack Fletcher. You're going to make him Swackhammer? I was kidding. Yeah.
I was kidding. Yeah. Man. Postponed from an earlier date. That was one of those. This weird story. Here it is.
Yeah. Baby Jessica ruins everything. I know that was later. Wow. That's a good night. Cheers. Early Cheers, one of my favorite shows. Obviously, it's Boston. This episode is a weird one. This is where is about women's full contact karate, which is one of the weirder ones with Elise Beasley, who's Coach's daughter, pre-moonlighting. Cheers, only show I can think of with 2 recastings that were just as good, if not better, than the originals, and the originals were good.
I mean, it really had great casting all the time.
Yeah, there's no missteps on that show. Final night of the week, and I apologize for taking up your whole evening. Final night of the week, Friday night.
Yeah, I'm starting with Benson.
Love Benson.
Then I guess I'm just going to watch the second half of Dukes. But my current ass is trying the Renegades with Patrick Swayze.
Yes.
What? The Renegades are a street gang that's been given a choice of A, go to jail for the commission of various gang-related crimes, or B, go to work for the police as a special undercover unit. Being clever kids, they choose B. It's 21 Jump Street in the 80s or the Mod Squad for the 80s. And this series was not only a month long, it turned out to be the lowest rated primetime dramatic show of the 82-83 season. I cannot believe how I probably was in real life watching Knight Rider, but my pandemic, this is just now I've taken over, but I don't care.
No, please
my pandemic, if you haven't seen the Renegades opening, here it is. I'm going to put it in the chat. My pandemic stay alive thing was a list of movies that we ended up calling Swayze Crazy. And it turns out that watching Patrick Swayze is very soothing to me. And so it started, I hadn't seen Roadhouse and I hadn't seen Point Break.
I hadn't seen either of those either till like last year.
What's going on?
I don't know.
What is going on? So I hadn't seen either until last year. And then they were like, you really should have seen Point Break. And I was like, this movie's phenomenal. I just thought people were kidding. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And they were like, I feel like you need to see Roadhouse. So then I did. And then that's even better. And then it turns out people hadn't seen Dirty Dancing. And, they just had. So then we watched Tu Wong Fu. But anyway, and The Outsiders is one of my favorite things ever, ever, ever. And so Swayze Crazy, we've just been going down the list. And I'm so excited that the Renegades was like, I think you need more Swayze Crazy, Pam. This pandemic's not finished with you.
In this episode, Terry Nunn from the band Berlin is in it.
Oh my gosh. So good.
The ad is just amazing.
I'm sad that this didn't have a real life because, it was obviously like some version of the Warriors here and
little A-Team.
Look at Swayze. Ugh.
Yeah, he's got this look in his face like, yeah, I know. It's like
I wouldn't have known it was him. Yeah, but it's his job. Once you know it's him, much like Miss Duffy earlier, you're like, oh my gosh, look at that man.
And Brian Tochi from Revenge of the Nerds, who's not credited, but I'd recognize him anywhere. He's right next to Swayze there. He's Takashi Toshiro. Life on the streets, it made them tough, it made them smart, it made them cops. That I'm not following that logic, but this is like 21 Jump Street for street gangs mixed with the A-Team.
Yeah. And they got a character named Marciano. It's legit. They got a character named JT. They got a character named Romeo. They got a character named Compact. This shit is legit. Compact,
played by Jay Scorpio.
Compact. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it has a break-in vibe in the this looks
There's
great.
some Converse and motorcycle boots. This is anyway.
Yeah, Crystal Bernard looking lady.
Yes, there's a whole first episode on the YouTubes that you can find, and I can't wait to sit with it. It's going to be my Swayze Crazy this week.
This is pretty amazing.
Definitely ending on a high here.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. I mean, that is although they clearly dumped it on a Friday because they knew no one wanted to watch it and no one was watching things that night. And its only competition was Tales of Gold Monkey.
Right.
Which was a great show.
But I think that they were hoping for, what An Escape from New York was on too. Like, I just feel they knew what they were doing. They just thought they would get that same crowd of like, are you young, hip, and staying home on a Friday night because your older brother has the car? Check out Renegades. You can watch it with your mom and tell her about things she doesn't know.
Do you want to go to school with a bandana tied around your thigh and you don't know why?
Yeah. Do you want to be a cop, but also you love school? Renegades.
How can you be a cop and a criminal at the same time? Cut your sleeves off and get dancing. Yeah, this was just like Switchblades for no reason. Renegades I'm gonna watch. I don't know what to. Normally I leave the show with like one thing. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this tonight. I don't know where to start with this week.
This was so good. And every other page of this TV guide is like, you do need a cigarette, right? And so this is all like, my parents both smoked in the house or in the car, just wherever I was. And so I also just kind of can smell my TV guide with its sort of cigarette-iness in my arms while I was like, this week I got to see Kevin Bacon and Patrick Swayze and like the best family ties and Carrie Fisher singing on Laverne and Shirley, Ed Solomon. Like,
this is a great week.
This is a great week. I know. And I kicked it off with the jazz singer. And I know you were like, this is a weird week, but even though this wasn't the week I thought it was, this is the week I wanted it to be.
And I have to end with the cheers and jeers, if you don't mind, if you have another minute.
Let's be controversial.
Because it really, it's in keeping with this amazing week.
But don't miss the review. The review is by Robert McKenzie, and it's about family ties. And he's trying to be grumpy. So just saying, like, if you haven't read it yet, it's great. He's like, there's a good show. God.
He hates that it's a good show. Like, he wants it to be Growing Pains. And he's like, it's, and I love how curmudgeonly it is. And I love how bitchy TV Guide can be. But like fair. Like he's like, I hate to admit it. So this is a Jeer heavy week, in that we have 3 Jeers and 2 Cheers. I'll read the Cheers and Jeers from this week, March 6th, 1983, and see if you agree or disagree with these Cheers and Jeers.
Okay.
We start with the Jeers, or should we say Cheeahs, for the lack of real Boston accents on St. Elsewere and Cheers, both set in Boston. Why, if somebody came on screen and asked where one could park a car, no one would know what he was talking about?
I feel like you've waited your whole life to read that, Jeers.
I'm so mad about that, Jeers, because I'm happier when they don't even try to do the accent. It's better when they don't try. Are you familiar with the Cheers robots?
No, what's a Cheers robot?
NBC made robot versions of Cliff and Norm, and they had Cheers bars in airports with robot versions of them in the seats who would say their lines and stuff, like the Hall of Presidents at Disney. And George went and Ratzenberger sued over them. So they won, and NBC didn't want to take the robots out because they cost so much money. So they changed their names to like Florm and Biff or something, and put bad wigs on them. And the photos are horrifying. It is such a crazy real story, and I love it. Yeah.
Look, it went to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
In 2000.
Yep.
I'm just because I Googled, how can I buy a Cheers robot?
I like that you put that spin on it.
Oh my God, they're terrifying.
Right.
Oh my God. They look like the Lost in Illusion, like the puppets from Bizarre.
Oh, spitting image.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Holy cannoli, those are scary.
Yep,
one looks like if Mr. Bean's face fell inside.
Yeah, it is like some real Westworld stuff there. Yeah. I would sue for that too. I might still sue them about that. Jeers to Have You Met Miss Chievious? She keeps popping up when some TV people want to say mischievous. James Brolin can be forgiven for invoking mischievous in an interview with Dixie Watley on Entertainment Tonight. Brolin's an actor. Maybe all he has to do is look good. But then Dixie repeated the word the same way. What's her excuse?
Listen, I want to do this piece as all future monologues. Hello, my name is Pam Ribon. I will be reading a piece from TV Guide, March 5th through 11th, 1983. It's called Jeers.
Mischief. Like, I wouldn't even notice if someone said mischievous or mischievous.
Mischievous?
Who's mad about that?
Well, a lot of theater and grammar teachers,
I suppose. Then we have a cheers to our friends across the pond, the British. Thank you, TV Guide, for telling us which ones you meant. Who appreciate NBC's excellent series Fame more than we do. Its ratings are anemic here, but Fame was England's favorite American program last year, ranking in the BBC's top 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to live forever. They said it, and it is.
Way to make us feel bad, TV Guide. With
you know what? I think I'll try it. But listen, this is a thing where I'd be like, maybe my kid who loves dancing in Hamilton will like Cheers. And then I turn around and then I have to explain to her like rape on day one. Like, is it going to be? Yeah. I feel
Fame?
like I'll wait until she finds Fame on her own. And
yes.
Which the whole thing can go away.
Is very poetic of you to say. Meaning the show and
yes.
Cheers to cable and TV subscriptions, TV systems that charge $10 to $12 for a pay-per-view rocks concert of the rock group The Who. Reported a genuinely disappointing response. We're delighted to note. What? I don't even understand that one.
They're sad that people, I guess this was very expensive to watch The Who, and then the show wasn't so great. And they're like, fine, maybe we'll stop doing pay-per-view or pay video.
But it's a Cheers. So they're like, good, fuck you, The Who.
Right. Yes. Good. Yeah. This is a real grumpy Cheers and Cheers.
Both of the Cheers are really Jeers in disguise here. They're Jeers. They're Jeers in Cheers clothing. And finally, Jeers to NBC for promoting its repeat showing of North Dallas 40 as if it were a lighthearted football comedy with lots of girls and hijinks. In fact, the film was a sharp, sardonic jab at the game, its pill-popping players, and when it all costs coaches.
North Dallas 40 is the one where the girl's wearing football helmets over her breasts.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this boy
this guy wanted Porkies and he got about drug addicts and he was mad about it.
Well, I mean, much like Bridesmaids, where I thought it was going to be about bridesmaids going to Vegas and getting balls in their face. It was not.
Yeah.
And I think I can understand this, Jeers.
Yeah, it's false advertising.
This movie was a Jeers in Cheers clothing.
Yes, it truly was.
That's such a good Twitter bio. Jeers in Cheers clothing.
Or like someone.
This also had a Jeers about Cheers. Like this is the most meta Cheers and Jeers. Cheers, Jeers. There was a Cheers, Jeers, and Cheers and Jeers. This was the true. Dr. Mr. Cheers and Jeers.
Miss Chievious.
Miss Chievious. They were rather Miss Chievious.
Oh, the madness that we've happened. I think we may have caused a singularity with this episode.
Finally.
Thank you so much for doing this.
This was so much fun. I hope I wasn't too nerdy, but you really, obviously, you and I were separated at some celestial moment in time.
Yeah.
And I look forward to finding out where else we share.
We'll have to do
Who knows?
We'll have to do like basically Cosmo quizzes, but just for each other.
Just for each other. Yes.
Yeah.
What was the name of your first pet? And then it's just going to get weird. And then we will get a show about this.
Yeah. Where we go back in time and watch my dad have a meltdown on Double Dare.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's going to be, first of all, an excellent podcast that the two of us listen to and no one else. But it will be, maybe my mom who will just worry that I will figure out all the secrets.
Yes.
Maybe she just didn't want me to see the TV she knew you were growing up watching.
That's true. It's true. She goes, I gotta keep it from her. I have to stop fate from happening. The world will end.
They'll make the singularity.
Antimatter and matter universes. It'll be like Time Cop.
Well, this was fun. We should go before the planets align and something happens to the globe.
There you go. Not a Blue Ribbon episode. I would say that didn't make us sad, but maybe it made you sad in a good way, which is what Blue Ribbon means now. But that was a ton of fun. I, as you can tell, had a great time, and Pam is great. And again, I thank her so much for her time. I know she's very busy, as she's incredibly accomplished, and that takes hard work. So yeah, I'll be here next week. I know you will too, for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
You make it seem like my life was just constantly getting into problems with mayonnaise.